Hello, I'm Richard Bruce, and I want to talk to you about something you may have heard about or read about, a future dystopia such as George Orwell's 1984 and other sci-fi gloomy predictions of the future and a tyrannical takeover. And it is my opinion that actually these are, in a way, predictions, even if they don't come true exactly as we expect. But people sense it coming, and many have sensed it coming, and feel that we're headed for a much worse place than where we've been. A place where we don't have the current freedoms that we now have. A place that is unrecognizable, and probably, as most of us think and can compare to the recent events with the pandemic, it will be brought in based on an emergency. And what we saw with the recent pandemic was the greatest breach of civil liberties and American freedom that we have ever experienced. We are talking about total loss of control due to the scare of a medical emergency. People gave way. People lost their jobs. People lost their lives. People lost their entire ability to support their families, all on things that could not be proven and are still not proven. And it is unbelievable how everyone seemed to go along with it, and that is how it gets brought in. For instance, we know that, or those of us in the conspiracy realm believe that the mass shootings that we see at schools and other places are not random events or people just happen to fly off the edge, as can commonly be attributed to human nature. Some people just snap and they want to get violent and they do a horrible thing. But in fact, if you look closely at all of these events, they have kind of an earmark. And people that pay attention to the details can realize this. But people who don't want to know that reality is less pleasant than we would like to think, they don't want to know. And I can relate to not wanting to know, because for most of my life before what happened to me in 2013, I didn't want to know. I didn't want to believe. I didn't want to believe my own mother, a medical doctor, that there was a problem with medicines that were being administered to children to prevent diseases actually causing lifelong mental retardation, to the utter horror and ruined and hampered lives of so many people, including people in my own family. And I believe that I myself have suffered as a result of these medicines, supposedly, that are actually designed to retard, slow us down, and destroy us, basically. Now, I believe that many science fiction works have predicted what is actually going to occur, which is that there's going to be a certain point, there's going to be a crossroads or some event which will cause the deep state, which is, as everybody now has been following along and knows that all of our news is false and we're being lied to about so many things and nothing is what it seems, and TV is just pure poison coming out of a screen at our faces. So many of us, like myself, have stopped watching because I had to have some help with that. God told me not to do it and punished me when I didn't understand. But he didn't want that poison coming into my face. But we can sense, and a consensus can be, or a conclusion really can be arrived at, that we're headed towards a break of freedom. That there's going to be a point at which, because of such and such emergencies arising and multiple things coming at us at once and threats and so forth, you're going to hear this rhetoric ramped up more and more, that what's really got to happen is we have to implement security measures. Otherwise, we're not going to be safe, and our children aren't going to be safe, and we're not going to have the free and open society that we used to have if we don't just implement a few of these laws, which may seem a little scary at first, but you'll get used to it. And you'll see that it's really, everyone agrees. All the major leaders and everyone who is in charge of big business and the governments and all the main experts agree that are credible, that you can see on television or even the internet, all agree that we should implement these restrictions, these laws. For instance, some kind of digital ID, something that's implanted under the skin or something else, which actually to me that thing isn't like, for instance, a chip under the skin or whatever. They already know who belongs to who. And now, well, if you didn't know what I meant by that, so I happen to believe that it's an either-or system. There's one of two spiritual rulers that we adhere to, God or Satan. And yes, the default for me and everyone I know is Satan. We are born into bondage under Satan, and he still dwells in us according to God's inerrant word. Don't be fooled. It's true. And what that tells us is that we have actually that spirit ruling in us, and it can still control us to some degree, even if we wake up to it. So that's one of the scary things about this. But sticking to the main topic of freedom and the loss of it, I think that there is a coming of a loss of freedom that is going to be so profound that it will match some of the most horrific science fiction depictions of dystopia that we have seen. And it'll probably happen quickly. Like the things leading up to it will be slow, but the change from a free society to a society of total enslavement, total loss of free speech. We already have partial loss of free speech through the fact that now everyone shares through the digital platforms, but the digital platforms are owned by entities that do not want us to say the truth so that others will wake up and be aware. So anyone who does wake up and starts to talk about this, they minimize and censor. For instance, my channel here on YouTube is highly shadow banned. I don't know why. I guess in some cases they do. They have to find some kind of legal basis. And if you back down on talking about something like the medicines that were administered during the pandemic, people like Carrie Cassidy, I believe, got entirely deplatformed from her channel, which she had a magnificent following and did amazing work. And but she was kicked off. And same also with the Corbett Report with James Corbett. Did a phenomenal, absolutely nothing violating community guidelines, just giving hypothesis and facts on the truth, and excellently made documentaries. And they deleted his entire channel from YouTube. And I believe it is because he didn't back off of certain subjects, such as administered so-called medicines. And if you mention that, you will be deplatformed. Especially if you're a smaller channel, they can just, and most people won't notice. But even bigger people like Ben Swan was completely deplatformed for talking about the protests happening in other countries, because there is it's important to understand that there is a spirit that wants to control us. That's kind of part of the meat of this, and this may sound like you're getting into metaphysical, spiritual, you can't really nail anything down, but it's actually important to understand the facts here. The real underlying facts of the situation are things that tend to be intangible, and yet they are in fact reality. And there's a very important purpose for that. It's not just happening so it's inconvenient for those of us who want to help make the world a better place. It's happening because people need to be allowed to make wrong choices. And apparently what is seen is that most people are making wrong choices. We can see a little bit of that, and we can see why we're allowed to slip into this dystopia by what James O'Keefe says here in this clip I saw on Jimmy Dore.
Was it, guys? Yeah, I'm just trying to get laid by lying about COVID.
I think most people are very dishonest. Let's be real. Most people are phony. So they fear a thing where they fear a world where they could be exposed. And I actually just learned this most recently. I wonder why isn't ever one of the first lines of my book is why isn't everyone looks at me with wonder and bewilderment, and I look at them with wonder and bewilderment. Why aren't you doing what I'm doing? I don't understand it.
Now, as I was watching that with James O'Keefe talking about how most people have something to hide, most people are shady, it sounds depressing, but if you have a little experience, you can see that it's actually true. And that is, as I was thinking about it, really how this dystopia will be installed. Because most people are going along with the occupations that Satan has set up, and that's a really important point. We here in the world are not privy to the information of how exactly these occupations are wicked. And God made it that way because we have to be free to make a choice and continue in that choice even with the approval and money and comfort that this world can provide. Because it's all about judgment. It's all about what happens when you die. Because you see, all the evidence points to the fact that this life that we're living is not the beginning of us, nor is it the end of us. We have a body inside of a body. Okay? So we have the physical body, obviously, we can see and touch, and then we have another body that is actually more of the reality of who and what we are, apparently existing in another dimension, which is why they're called spirits or a soul, and we don't have a very good way to see it, although some people have certain gifts and they might be able to see some of this stuff. But I can prove one thing I personally can do, Richard Bruce here on the Richard Bruce channel on YouTube, is prove that spirits exist and that there is a spiritual reality because of what I discovered via demonic distortion. So when I started out, I saw these unusual shapes that other people were talking about. Finally, I found a channel that made credible movies about it called Frequency Fence, now defunct. But he initially made great, just silent movies, but using text, showing these non-human forms, and so I discovered this for myself, and through a gradual process of looking at things and seeing these shapes that have light, shadow, and shade and everything, and these have to be physical forms, and these people are shape-shifting. But I found out that that actually isn't the case. What's happening is a revelation through video, wherein the truth of indwelling spirits and or somehow features of these indwelling spirits themselves somehow show up in video. It's like truth through some sort of machine mechanism, like a camera or a tape recorder. And I mentioned tape recorder because a similar type of truth revealing through a device is something called reverse speech. You may have heard of it. There are people that specialize in this. I heard about it through a very excellent activist who I haven't heard from a long time, and given the work that she did, I wouldn't be surprised if she might not be among us anymore. Peggy Kane, she actually began to talk with spirits from the other side, even reptilian spirits, and in reverse speech of them, she found out how they eat people on a regular basis, and most people, they can't even fathom this. It's all kept from our consciousness. We're all being duped.
For a while.
And why is it that you suspect that the reptilians have such easy access and the Pleiadians have such a difficult time?
They own this world inside of their net. We're in a lockdown. It's a force field. And the reptilians were coming in. They were cloning them by the thousands and thousands. As a matter of fact, one of them told me that they were getting ready to invade New York.
So reptilians cloning reptilians.
Right. Yes. And the ones that they clone are all, I think they're virtually all male. They told me they have an extra Y chromosome, which makes them much more aggressive. They were getting ready to invade New York, and I thought, when I heard that there was going to be another event, kind of like maybe 9/11, but it was an interdimensional invasion. In other words, they were there to grab people who died.
In New York City.
Yeah.
the astral version of New York City.
Right.
So is the astral realm almost a mirror image of what's here?
It's similar, but I don't, you know, like Francis is, when he moved in, and he said, we're going to keep this ship now. This was the first time I got what they do. We're going to keep these humans as slaves, and when we get tired of them, we're going to hang them and eat them. That was the first time I really got it, what this eating. This wasn't just about energy or sucking energy. This was about literally chopping them to pieces and eating them.
We're literally food for another race of beings, and the reason why you don't see it on the news, of course, or you don't see it, you know, a lot of people talking about it that are really visible, except for somebody like David Icke, who was tortured to hell and gone so that he would never talk about it again, and so he didn't. But the point is that I was able to see through this demonic distortion that spirits are real. These beings that exist in another dimension are a real factor that we have to deal with. And I believe that how this dystopia is allowed to be brought in is that the reality is that most people continue without really rejecting Satan, which is these indwelling spirits. So in case, you know, this is something that if you haven't followed this, it'll sound like, you know, religious paranoia and fantasy and so forth. But actually, once you get into the weeds and look into everything, the evidence, you can see that it's true. And the literature, including the scripture, tells us that it is. And even movies like The Exorcist kind of give us a little bit of insight into it as well, kind of a visual on it. You know, and so what I found out was that these multiple demonic beings that are, it's hard to comprehend, but what we have are multiple evil beings that actually live in us. They are a part of us. I'm not talking about being suddenly possessed like the girl in The Exorcist. I'm talking about permanent residents from birth until the day we die. Demons, unless perhaps you might get some of them cast out, but there's other ones that can come in and do a total takeover, and you see it talking like, I'm this evil demon, blah, blah, blah. But what you find out is that actually they're all just pieces of this one consciousness. That is Satan, the devil, which is a giant, as I understand, over 50 feet tall, man-eating reptile with big horns that come out like this. And it sounds like it can't be true. It sounds like, you know, again, religious fantasy story. You've been watching too many movies, blah, blah, blah. But when you get into the weeds, you finally find this out. And the reason why people can't see the dystopian society that's on the way, the reason why they can't comprehend what a lot of people in the truth movement, even those that have no religious affiliation at all, but they know about it because they experienced it, or they talk to people that they believe and they've seen enough evidence that it's going on. But even then, they can't really realize the full extent of what's going on and what's behind it, because they themselves are still participants of the evil. That's the key. Again, we are not privy to the information of exactly how these occupations for money that we need to do to support our family, our lives, our relationships, whatever. But the reality is, and I'm here to tell you, that I discovered, and it was revealed to me early on, even though for years I couldn't figure it out and I couldn't convince myself not to do them. I always tried. Tried starting up businesses, tried working many different types of jobs, tried to get into the film industry, tried to get into construction, tried to get into manufacturing, all this stuff. It turns out that actually it's a setup. And there's no way. See, you need to understand, money belongs to Satan. The scripture says you cannot serve both God and money. You will either love the one and hate the other, or hate the other and love the one, however you want to look at it. But bottom line to it is you're going to love your daddy, who gives you the cash that you need to live. Okay? Now, the depressing part is that if you spiritually intuitive, in an intuitive way, recognize that all the occupations, everything, and I'm talking about from honest labor scrubbing toilets. Yes, I'll try to touch on that a little bit, but from that to the highest ranking CEO, Jeff Bezos, all these rich people, Bill Gates, that and everything in between, as long as you will serve them for your money, no matter how small it is or how great it is, as long as you will do them, your mind will be kept from understanding how they bring in this dystopia, this utter and total loss of freedom. And you can't believe it. Wait, no. Even the most wicked, crapbag, liberal, Democrat, puke-faced, garbage bag would say, wait a minute, I'm not giving up my freedom. Okay, it is time to get the guns and can go fight these mothers. No. You need to understand. You see, the world works by a set of laws. And they know that as long as you will serve Satan, because, you see, you got to understand something. It's an either-or situation. You may say, well, I may not be, wanting to be a priest or something for God, but I am not serving Satan. Well, I got some little bit of tough news for you there, pal. It's an either-or situation. You will be one or the other. Otherwise, you will die from starvation. Okay? Because you have to be doing something. And unless you are actively making a decision to serve the Lord, no matter what your case may be, you're laid up in bed, you can't possibly serve anybody, you're part of some sort of community where they don't do this or that, and there's nothing that can be said that you're serving Satan's empire, Satan's world empire. Don't be fooled, friend. There's no out. There's no out. Once a man has the truth revealed into his mind, which will happen when you, minus any knowledge, just say, ain't going to do it. I don't know why. Somehow, I'm not going to do it. Okay? Screw these people. Screw their occupations. Screw their money. I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. Okay? I think this happens to every single person who's going to succeed this test. And do not be fooled, friends. It is, in fact, a test. Do not be fooled. God is trying to see what you're going to do. And apparently, most people choose wrong. That's the sad fact. But there are plenty of people who choose right. Otherwise, he wouldn't bother to do all this. And the only people who are going to understand any of this, the only people who are going to get this, are those people who, they couldn't explain why. They just said, you know what? I ain't doing it. I don't know what I'm going to do in the meantime. I'm going to, wander around like a bum trying to figure out what to do with my life. But you made a decision in your heart for whatever reason. I need to search for answers because there's something here. Okay? Working for the insurance company, I didn't really like it. Working for the real estate company, somehow I just didn't feel right about it. Being a policeman, it's a job we need. Okay? Being the architect, being the menial labor person, being the cook, being the waitress, being the janitor, being the school teacher, we need all these things. Am I saying that everybody should just quit and we'll just have a total chaotic society? No, what I'm saying is that God has a way that for the soul who will realize that there's just something wrong here that's so wrong that you just can't do it anymore. And you with faith say, you know what, I don't know what this is. I'm going to stop. God will come in. And he will reveal himself to you like he revealed himself to me over 30 years ago. And I saw it. And I realized that I was given a gift of the Holy Spirit. It's something that's added to your consciousness that allows you to believe and understand. And then you study his word to understand. And his only true word is the authorized King James Bible. Do not be fooled. Other Bibles say very different things, including the commandments, which are necessary to keep if you want to win this race, if you want to win this game. It is. It's like a game. I'm like that guy from the X-Files. Of course it's a game. Well, it is. It is like a game because you're either going to win or you're going to lose. And boy, oh boy, the stakes are so high and so serious, friends. I can't stress this enough, how serious it is.
As I'm walking through these dirt road, there's fire and there's screaming, there's shouting, and people saying that, let me out. Let me out. I want to do right. I want to do right this time. I promise to do right. Let me go out and tell the world and let them know that this is a real place. Hell is real. But it's too late, because once we have our opportunity and our chances, God's so merciful, he's so lovable, he gives you chance after chance after chance, and then we don't take that chance, that's where we're going to go.
It's an incredible win if you win, but it's also an incredible lose if you lose. Because, you see, our understanding and our consciousness in this life is false. It's predicated on something that actually doesn't exist, time. And what happens to every single soul who will fail this test of the world to see what you're going to do, and what I like to say even more importantly, what you're not going to do, because that's when God will show it to you. God will show the reality to you. What will happen is God will reveal his words which describe the situation, and then you begin to understand, but just little bits by bits, so don't expect instant grand understanding. There's plenty of people out there watching who are probably smarter than me, and they can figure it out a lot faster, but he will tailor it for your needs, your spiritual needs, and the difficulties that you need to go through. Because win or lose, you're going to go through difficulties. But oh boy, you don't want to lose. Okay? I was just thinking, I can't think of a more horrific situation than what we have now, than this situation of what happens, what this situation is. If in your life you're not showing that you have courage to say no, to say, fuck you, I'm not going to do it, I don't care if I'm a fucking bum with nothing and nobody and people spitting on me until the day I die, because you just decided that somehow every single one of these motherfuckers that you tried to work for are pieces of shit. There's something wrong. Like you can't figure it out. Even like when you try to provide an honest business and something, it's like they're all fuckers. And but you just don't really know how, and then you say to yourself, well, maybe I'm totally wrong. I just can't figure it out, and we can't just sit around doing nothing. But here's what I would say. Under normal circumstances, the things that we need and could do in the world could be things that you could do, and it wouldn't be an utter stain to the soul by which you will fail and end up in hell when you die. But the situation is designed so that it looks like there's no other alternative, and you have to do it. But the underlying structure, as I was going to get to about menial labor, the way it's designed and the overall situation is such that it's wickedness, because you end up serving a plurality of those who do wickedness. So let's just say you sweep floors. That's it. You mop the floors for some bank or whatever. A bank's a good example. But they take money off of usury, which is extremely wicked. That's why God tells us, don't do usury. Banks shouldn't exist if people were righteous, because they would know that these people make their money from profiteering from interest on loans. That's how they make their money. But it's an evil scheme. It's an enslavement. Okay? We could have a system where people could borrow money for various projects and it wouldn't involve usury. Okay? It could be supported through community collective gathering of funds and then distributed to those with worthy causes. But everything is set up to where only the most vile and disgusting people are allowed to succeed in a big way. That's how Satan can count on the fact that he has control over these people, and he does. You gotta understand, right now you might think that the heads of big business, most of them are basically honest people. Like, it can't be that you have like all of the major success stories in our American culture. It can't be that they're all like extremely wicked and disgusting. That just can't be. But in fact, it is. It is. It's worse than you think. They have control over these people via honey traps like Jeffrey Epstein provided with these underage girls. That's nothing. We're talking about child sacrifice, drinking the blood, passing around the goblet. And people like Bill Gates and all these people have done it. They're involved in it. They're part of it. They're guilty of it. They've got it on tape. And if any one of these people gets out of line, they can leak it to the appropriate parties, and they will be utterly ruined. But they don't want this to get out. And these people are so wicked anyway. And that's the only kind of person Satan's going to give his money in big quantities to. Think Elon Musk? Think he's the good guys? Think again. So they are able to be controlled. And if they aren't able to be controlled, well, guess what? Then we got assassination. And by the way, just so you understand, if there isn't anybody who really gets in the way, if there's anybody who's, no matter what, they can't buy them out and they can't get rid of them, they can't shut them up, they can and will dispose of them and or make a clone of them and switch it out. And by the way, the video techniques and cloning and everything else that they have is so good. The real technology that these non-humans, and they have humans working for them, but what they have is so good that no one could guess. You see somebody that you've been watching for years, and you think you know them, and you know what they're going to say, and you will have no idea. That's how good it is. And so there's kind of a depressing conclusion from this, which is that, well, then how can we get control of it? How can we win? How can this war be won? How can this thing happen? And there's one overriding fact, is this. First of all, I would say, as a conclusion of looking at all this, there is really no one and no collective that can really do anything about it. Because, see, what's happening is, this is like a sci-fi movie. You may have seen The Time Machine, or some other movies where, for instance, there was an episode of Star Trek where they found this planet where the planet was, on the surface, it was like a playground for people to enact their memories. But underground was massive factories. And when you go to this planet, it reads your mind, and they know everything that would be the perfect fantasy for you to live out. And they created all underground in these studios, and with technology that's so great, they could make people and things and everything to go with it. Well, the fact is that they have this. But that's really what's going on. I talked with somebody a while ago, and I've heard it from other quarters that, but what this one person said to me was, he was at this one place. It's about 30 minutes away from here in Tahunga, and he was in this one park-like area, and at a certain point, the ground opened up, and he saw this underground city, where he didn't know what all went on there, but he knew that there was a whole civilization underground, and we're just dupes on the surface. That we think we understand what's going on. We think we know who's who. We think we understand the entirety of politics and psychology and all this stuff. The reality is, we are so undereducated as to the full extent of what's going on here and what the enemy really has and all this, that not only do we not know anything. And of course, if we don't know anything, the chances of anybody, even a collective, massive, roaring rebellion of some kind, of something, if that was possible, like all of a sudden, you could take control of their mind control machines and take over everyone and have them just rush the deep state and kill them all. Just some sort of thought that you could have like that about like how people could win this. It's my conclusion that, and this is going to sound like a defeatist, negative thing to say, but because I just don't think there's nothing that can really change the ruling world structure except for the coming of the Lord. You say, well, I don't believe in your God, your religion crap, I'm going to fight. I'm going to, okay, I understand, man. And I understand how that seems like defeatist rhetoric. I'm just giving you my opinion. And also I would say that, the winning is on an individual level, what you're going to do about it. But I would just warn, and I'm just saying in advance, that this dystopian loss of freedom is coming. We're talking about, you can't just go where you want to go. You can't just take a trip off to another country unless you're like one of the elite that they've fully sold out to the satanic, blood-drinking, child-sacrificing on a regular basis thing that they've got going on. Then you can travel and eat steak and stuff. But the rest of us, it's going to be like, I don't know if you saw some of the stuff that was happening in Australia. I can't even believe those guys down there put up with that stuff without going ape and burning down everything. I mean, I was wondering, and I was going to say, think about what happened in the French Revolution. Why? Why did they have the French Revolution? Because the conditions that the reptilian structure that was there in their country, and by the way, reptilians are big in France, in case you didn't know that. They have a big showing there. Oh, in case you didn't know, I'll just let you in on this little fact in case it's kind of escaped your belief. They do, in fact, have shape-shifting. They live among us. They look exactly like us. They basically are us in a lot of ways. But boy, they sure aren't in a lot of ways. And like this one lady was saying, giving a talk, a public presentation there nearby Buckingham Palace, that when you understand these creatures, when you see them, you first of all, you just be like, holy crap. And it would kind of bring to your mind what, how this evil could possibly be going on. One look at that, and you would just be like, oh, now I get why we have the world that we have. They are in charge. And she said that, trust me when I say that they are the most evil creatures on the face of this earth that you could possibly imagine. And that's a good way to put it, because the fact of the matter is most people just can't imagine that anyone could be so evil as these creatures are, to do what they're doing.
Those people in there that you think you're protecting, they are killing the children. They have been doing it for hundreds of years.
Satanic scum!
Please know that what I am going to tell you now is very difficult for me. I was tortured beyond imagining, so I would never speak of what I saw. The Queen and Prince Philip are not human.
No.
I have been mocked, I've been laughed at, I've been attacked, I've been through every single thing you can imagine by trying to get this truth out there. I couldn't give a flying fuck what you react like. I am going to tell you the truth.
Yes!
They are reptilians. They shapeshift from human form into lizard form. I saw this with my own eyes many, many times. And trust me when I tell you, they are the most evil creatures that you could possibly imagine on this planet. When I was taken out for rituals in this place, the Queen would come out last because she was the master of ceremonies. Just like she leads this country, and Prince Philip is always second, she would come out last. She was the master of ceremonies. And she would walk out, and there would be a glitching process that goes on. And she would turn around and stare me straight in the eyes if it was my turn on the concrete slab. And she would make me watch her change. Her face would change first. Okay, so she would turn and look at me, okay? She would turn and look at me and make me stare her in the face while she glitched and went from human form to reptilian form. Then she would turn around so I could just see the back of her, and this was the same routine every single time. She would then change in physical form and she would become very, very tall. I can't tell you how tall, I don't know, but very, very tall. Very tall and very thin. Prince Philip would already be in reptilian form. I never saw him change from human to reptilian. I just used to see him change back, but it was all about her. She would come out and everybody had done the blood drinking and she would then change. She would glitch.
But they are in control. They have Satan on their side. God has set them up so that they are the winning faction of this world. They do, in fact, control everything. They are, in fact, in charge. Okay? And if you make enough of a problem for them, they will do away with you. And if you start to be a problem for them, or if they even think that you're somebody who's independent-minded and brave and might be a problem for them, they might start to target you and do things to get rid of you with targeting. In case you didn't know, that's what targeting is. They have a whole program to slow kill people so that they don't just kill everyone right away, because otherwise it'd be too obvious. But we're under societal control even right now. We just haven't entered into the total loss of freedom dystopia that's coming. I was kind of thinking of it recently when I was watching Steins Gate, which is an excellent anime about time control. But one of the things about it was what they were saying was that in the future, CERN, which if you look at the CERN logo, it's pretty much Satan, but they successfully enslave humanity by owning everything. Okay, and they take away the guns so that no one can rebel, and they criminalize anybody who stands up against them or speaks against them, and it's a gradual process, but they win. And and so you have all these people controlled by these few people, but their control is solid because they control enough people to control the rest of the people. And they use mind control and various other things. And even if it, like, let's just say there was a scenario where it didn't work quite as well, and there was still like a lot of people who were standing up and saying, you know, we're not going to take this. We're not going to take this loss of freedom. They have other more severe, more draconian tools to stop that. So, but it's important to understand that as hopeless as that seems, as negative as that seems, God has set this situation up because it's required for the test of the world. It has to. There's multiple things happening here, but one of those things is that it's a test to see what souls are going to do, and then, depending on what that choice is, to bring them through various processes. More importantly, the people that He wants to bring into His kingdom and be with Him forever in the earth, as His word says. The entire conclusion of God's word is that He wants to have a new life right here in the world, not up in heaven, some faraway place. Okay, that place exists, yes, and a lot of people are going to be raised up in the rapture, and they're going to go there and they're going to get their golden mansion, just like the scripture says. But eventually, they're going to come back as the children of the people who stayed here on the earth, is my hypothesis. That's just my thinking. But I can show you that in the scripture. Anything that I say, I can render a reason showing step by step in the scripture. My logic doesn't mean I'm right. At least I can render a reason about it. But friends, I just want to warn you that we're headed for dystopia. And you may think that, no, they can't possibly do that. Well, I was thinking before the pandemic that they couldn't possibly lock people in their homes and force them to take medicines that are unproven. And then, oh, and by the way, I just have to make another comment about this. You know, and then when they depose the current president with the most obvious fraudulent election in the entire time that I've been watching the events, then when they go to bring him back for a historic comeback, they forget who brought in the swamp, who brought in Fauci, who brought in Deborah Birx, who brought in Bolton, these scum. But who initiated warp speed? Who did it? Who was behind it? Who hasn't recanted from it? Who has said, no, it's great, go get your thing. I can't mention here on YouTube because we don't have free speech. Well, he's the good guys because look at how many people are coming against him. All those people, okay? Mark Dice, Benny Johnson, anybody else who is supporting Trump is verifiably a fucking moron who actually I can't even believe they forgot. They must be, I was thinking, these people must be clones. Mark Dice supporting Trump? I mean, doesn't he, and he even says that he watches Alex Jones, and Alex Jones even pointed out what really happened, and the numbers now prove it, and the CDC is even warning about this, right? It's right in everyone's faces. Of course, you're not going to see it on the news, but official companies are now talking about the problems of this administered medicine, experimental, and it's now confirmed how problematic. Anybody with even an ounce of common sense, and if they're no, because they're all fighting against him and they're raiding his home in Mar-a-Lago and all this stuff. Oh, he must be the good guys. Oh, he must be the good guys. That is so short-memoried. I just don't understand how you can not realize that this whole thing, they want you to vote. They want you to. Now they have electronic voting. Oh, hey, electronic voting. Oh, that's really reliable. You can count on that. There's no problem with that. I mean, computerized voting. Oh, computerized voting. You mean computers that can be hacked? Oh yeah, no. Don't worry about it. We have mechanisms in place. Same with Bitcoin. Oh, you can count on Bitcoin. See, we had the system, the blockchain, everything. Oh, it's absolutely secure. See, we know how it works because we know how the blockchain works and codes work and everything. There's no way they can break in Bitcoin. It's totally reliable. Oh, yeah, invest in Bitcoin. They want you to be an idiot. They want you to waste your money on this bullshit. Satan's not losing control of his money system. And by the way, all this hubbub about bringing in a central bank digital currency. What's the hubbub? They already have it. They already have digital currency. Your money is already digital. I don't see what the big fuss is. I mean, if they're going to screw you over and delete your bank account or freeze you out of bank accounts, they're going to do it. But remember, it's all in God's hands. It's all in God's hands. Speaking of which, if you're watching this, it's not too late. Say this prayer now. Father in heaven, please save my soul by the work of your Son Jesus on the cross, and show me your pure words in the authorized King James Bible.
This is a war on religion. Put your hands up, brother. This is